morning and welcome to the 2015 Mobile Payments Conference. Nice to see everybody. My name is Heather Hatch. I'll be your MC and ringmaster for the day. I work for PAX Technology. A few things to get started. Obviously everybody has seen the coffee in the back. We all appreciate that. Would like to thank our platinum sponsor WorldPay. Thank you very much. Our silver sponsor Intel and our registration sponsor Apriva. A little later on in the day during lunch, we're going to be having a book signing by Bob Carr. So if you look on the back of your attendee badges, there could be a sticker on the back. If you have a sticker, then you've won a free book from Bob, and he will sign it over lunch. The exhibit hall will be open in certain breaks that we have, and there'll be lunch in the exhibit hall as well. Any questions, just come over and let us know. We're going to have Nick Holland from Javelin come up and get us all started this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming here this morning and waking up. I'm going to check this clicker thing works. And it does. So I've been tasked with giving the opening address, and this is nice. This is year 2 for me. So thank you again, Marla and the team, for inviting me back. Despite my behaviour last year, I'm back in the building, so that's nice. So I'm Nick Holland. I head up the mobile practice at Javelin, which is appropriate because this is a mobile payments conference. And probably for the best part of a decade, I've been looking at that intersection of mobile with payments. And it's pretty abundantly apparent that things are finally happening. We now have kind of clearly some momentum going on with mobile payments. I'm going to keep this brief as well, so I'll focus on the brevity here, because I've got a few slides to go through. I'm going to keep this very brief and to the point, and just kind of frame, I think, not just today, but the next couple of days, and maybe, you know, ideally the coming years, and the way that we should be thinking about mobile payments overall. So the first is just, I think, to put things in some context. So when we talk about mobile payments, obviously there's a plethora of things we can be looking at, but I think that most of the momentum is, or certainly most of the interest is around mobile proximity payments. That's what's happening at the point of sale. And this puts things into perspective a little bit. It's still a drop in the ocean. So if you look at the point of sale landscape in 2014, we do, I mean, and again, just to refresh on what Javelin does, we do a variety of very deep industry research looking at banking and payment technology trends with some fairly weighty consumer surveys. So we do surveys of maybe 5,000 consumers at a time to look at their behavior. And this is a cross-section of what we're seeing of, again, the point of sale at the moment. So it's 4 trillion transactions, of which the lion's share is still made up of credit and debit cards. That's no surprise to anybody. There's 788 billion in cash, still very significant. Checks still out there in quite a significant number, which is, you know, somewhat counterintuitive in that, you know, given that we are in the mobile payment space, you might not think about that, but they're still used in abundance at the point of sale. Prepaid cards, 159 billion, 130 billion for gift cards. Mobile payments, only 3.1 billion. Again, and the variety, you know, the cross-section of those, as we're seeing them today, skews very heavily to one specific provider. It's not Apple, it's not Google, it's Starbucks, and I'm sure you're very familiar with that. But I think that's something to bear in mind as well. It's not necessarily about the payments, it's about providing value addition to the end user. Just focusing a little bit on that mobile payments market. So yes, we're looking at the 3.1 billion in proximity, which is there. Oh, this laser isn't working, obviously, it just lights up for some reason. 3.1 billion in proximity. But again, you know, I guess let's not look at that in isolation. I mean, I think the impact of mobile is clearly very disproportionate to the actual volume in transactions we're getting. And that's, you know, again, you see that today with things like, let's look at the phenomena of showrooming recently, where people have started using their phones over the last few years to do comparison shopping. And mobile is this incredible tool, is this conduit between the online and the offline space. It's that connective tissue between online and offline, and a huge enabler from that standpoint. So it's fusing the ability to be local and global at the same time. And clearly things are progressing very rapidly. And here we have the forecast. So, clearly, again, significant momentum around mobile proximity payments. We're looking at going from 3.1 billion up to 53 billion in 2019. And that is a lot to do with, again, some of the big companies that are throwing their hat into the ring. We've got, obviously, Apple Pay has done nothing particularly new, I would add, other than package things very nicely. But it has, I think that one of the most interesting things about Apple Pay is my mum now understands what I do for a living. It's made it go simple enough to explain what mobile payment analyst is as a job title. But then we have, obviously, there's, Android Pay imminently launching. We have Samsung Pay somewhere out in Korea, but drifting this way very soon, and MCX, and so on and so forth. It's something that is rapidly evolving. And again, I mean, we do forecasts, but I respect the right to retract the forecasts at any given point with new data coming along. It could be exploding far more exponentially. And look at the velocity of change here as well over the last, 12 to 18 months. October 2014, Apple Pay went live. MCX has been doing some blocking stuff, obviously. But again, just look at the last 6 months, February, March, and April. The amount of momentum around Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, so on. It's really gaining masses of momentum. There's a lot going on. And the other thing that's fascinating with this as well is that it's radically altering the status quo for the experience at the point of sale, because you're not necessarily now tied to having a card and a point of sale for the point of interface. It doesn't need to be like that. It could be a phone and a point of sale. It could be a phone and a phone. It could be none of the above. It could, in fact, be something like this. I'm sure you're all abundantly aware of things like Uber and Lyft, where the last thing you see is the transaction. That's moved right to the background. You never see that. Again, the explosion of one-click payments in terms of buy buttons and so on and so forth. The payment is becoming a hygiene, if you're talking about Herzberg's kind of motivators and hygiene. It's something that just needs to work and as well as possible. And I'll bring you now to, I think, something of an inflection point in terms of what really needs fixing. And it's this. If I would... This is my nemesis, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. It's a technological yard sale. It's something that has become, clearly very prevalent at the retail point of sale. And I think it points to everything that's wrong with payments, because as I say, I mean, it's a kind of yard sale of technology. It's not designed with any ergonomics or user experience, and it points purely to, again, the way that automation can go very badly if you're not considering the user experience from the merchant and the consumer standpoint. It's horrible. And this is what happens. So if that's the cause, this is the effect. And this is a personal photo of mine. The rest of these are obviously sort of industry photos. This is a photograph I took a few months ago. I was in line at the checkout. This is a self-checkout lane. The lady in front of me, you might notice, has a full cart of groceries. So this is after she'd finished her bagging. She'd gone through, filled her a cart of groceries, scanned everything individually. This was about 10 minutes into the entire cycle of payments. And then she opened up a book of coupons that she'd clipped from newspaper. And she went individually through these barcodes and scanned them. And then obviously some of them didn't work, so a red light went off and a cashier came out. This is the worst person in the world to be behind. And I took this photograph almost specifically to put it on Facebook and put it out there as a warning. If you see this woman in a supermarket, just, abandon ship. So this is what can go wrong. And this is, I kind of beseech you over today and tomorrow and, as your future marketing and product development plans come together, this is what can happen if you don't train people and this can be solved. This can go away. There is no reason for this anymore. So, key takeaways, keeping again this brief. So the impact of mobile is disproportionate to its dollar volume for now. I mean, clearly, the long tail here is the digitization of payments. I mean, if you look at any other form of digitization, if you look at things like, you know, the Encyclopedia Britannica, or if you look at, you know, Kodak film or CDs or whatever, it's a form factor for the delivery of content that has become irrelevant in a digital world. So ultimately, the long tail is that, you know, mobile or whatever will supersede whatever else we're putting out there. And certainly it'll supersede cards, cash, and checks. But that continuum is very long in that we have a very entrenched payment system. And even now in the US, we're moving from, you know, from card technology from something 50-year-old to something that's 30-year-old. So that's, you know, that's the pinnacle of innovation as far as the payments industry goes at the point of sale. Again, I mean, the second point, relevant but also connected to the first one, is that payments are a hygiene. You know, the reason why so many things are entrenched and we're not displacing them, like cash, cards, checks, is because they fulfill the criteria that people are looking for. Payments need to be fast, they need to be secure, they need to be safe. Most of all, they need to be ubiquitous. You know, there's no point building a new payment system from scratch, because it's like having the first fax machine in the world. If you can only fax to one other person, it's no use. So payments are something that just needs to be seamlessly working in the background, and people will not pay to pay. You know, if you're bringing to market a credit card that is an aggregator of multiple other credit cards and charging people $100 for the privilege, that's not going to work. And then ultimately, I think the final point is that, you know, again, the discussions we're going to have over the next couple of days point to this. We're looking not just at the point of payment, we're looking at the entire purchasing funnel. It's everything that draws the consumer to the point of transaction, how they experience that in the retail store, whether that's online or offline, and then that continuum beyond the purchase in terms of the data and analytics that will provide you the information to bring them back into the store using the correct information at the correct time. So that's ultimately, I think, you know, that's my 10 minutes of ranting, probably over for today. I'm very much looking forward to some in-depth discussion over the next couple of days, but certainly I think, you know, the people in this room are here for a reason, and that's that we can solve these things, and I certainly look forward to seeing how we're going to do that. So thank you very much. I'll pass you on to the next panel. Thank you.